The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade.
That's
The Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
She can tell. Though my head's as heavy as the Liberty Bell.
Welcome to The Marinade, Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 119, and our guest for the second time is Cory Branan. Y'all, Cory is one of my all-time favorite musicians. He is a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist based in Memphis, whose career has meant so much to so many, including myself. His latest record is on a ton of Best of 2022 lists for very good reason. It's called When I Go, I Ghost, and I think it is the best thing he has done in his illustrious career. The record features some of his best writing. It also has special guests such as Garrison Starr, Jason Isbell, Brian Fallon, Eric Slick, and others. It is a very special piece of art, and I'm incredibly grateful to pick Cory's brain about how this wonderful album came together. We caught up at Lil Indies here in Orlando, Florida, out back where we have recorded so many episodes ahead of his set at Will's Pub. Y'all, it is my great thrill to bring you my conversation with Cory Branan. Hey, yeah, you.
One. Check.
Oh, we smell good. Mike's just try not to move too much.
Gotcha.
Maybe popping. Dude, I'm so excited to talk to you. I love this record. I love
Thank
When
you.
I Go, I Ghost. I'm so fired up.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
So, it's funny, man. We were just kind of talking a bit of nostalgia just then. I was doing the research for this, and it's really fun because, like, we're not too far away in age, and it kind of blew my mind to look back and think that The Hell You Say was 2002.
Yeah. It's been a piece.
It's been 20 years, dude.
Yeah.
And it's just it's kind of wild to think, because I've sort of grown into an adult on your music, and that's kind of a wild realization for me today. And so I wonder if we could do, like, kind of go back through some of those records,
anything you
and
want to
periods,
do.
and then talk about the new one.
I don't remember a lot of those periods, but
that might be part of the conversation, right?
Yeah. I'll happily confess up to whatever I remember.
Because I was looking at kind of grouped them. I was like, all right, so 2002 is The Hell You Say, and 2006 is 12 songs.
Yeah, I don't even know, because it was always so confusing, like, because the record came out locally in Memphis, and then it came out nationally a year later, the first one, and so it was that sort of staggered thing. And then it took forever to get the second one out. But each of the records, I think I recorded the one that came out in 2006, I recorded it in 2005, and it just took a bit. There's always some little, thing. Yeah. Business ain't fun.
No, but what, like, at that time, for whatever you remember of it, what was writing, and what was the process like for you at that time, and was it different from how it is now?
No, in a way, I've had to learn how to do it after I had kids. I had to learn how to do it differently because I never wrote on the road, and so that's the one big change. I've learned to write on the road in the past, even just in the past 5 years, and I wasn't doing that then. But yeah, all those songs that even from the second record, I wrote those like right away. Like when I started writing, I didn't start writing until between 24 and 25 years old, and I wrote one, and then I wrote 40. You know,
Wow.
and it's sort of they all just sort of started coming, and so you know the songs just sort of stack up over the years, and occasionally I'll visit, I'll drag one out and dust it off, and I think that that Mutt record that came out in like 2012, I think it had a song from like the first batch of songs I ever wrote, that Darken My Door song, you know. Occasionally I'll dig them up, but usually I'm only interested in what the most recent stuff I've been writing, you know.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that period goes, it's kind of a burst, but it seems like bursts are kind of how you still write too. Is that true?
Yeah. You know, obviously with COVID and everything was there is no normal anymore. For those couple of years I didn't write anything because I was busy like putting out, you know, I had to keep money coming in, so I put out those 5 direct-to-fan records of like I took commissions, and so I would cover anything anybody wanted, and then put them on the cover records that went straight to fans. And it'll never be on any digital thing or anywhere.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to, you know, mix and master and record at the house, and I had to learn how to fucking program drum machines and shit for all the, you know, program things that, you know, like strings and things for stuff that I didn't know how to play. And so I kept myself busy with that, and it's something I avoided consciously for years because I tend to obsess. So all the time I spent in the studio before, I was like, I don't want to know what this stuff does because I want to know what it all does, you know.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be off the road for who knows how long. I got to keep money coming in. So then I took the time and went down the rabbit hole and called all my engineer friends. I'm like, all right, learn me good. And yeah, so I just obsessed about that for a while. And but yeah, the writing was off the table for those couple of years. Yeah, I'm sort of always writing, but it all goes in this sort of junkyard. I never really sit down and say I'm going to write this song, you know, and I'll just fiddle with a thing until it strikes me as something interesting, or I'll write through, you know, I'll write a crappy song just to get to the end of it and be like, oh, this is an interesting idea I had right at the end, and I'll use that as a starting point. You know, a lot of I don't sit and wait for inspiration, that kind of thing. You know, I just work. You know,
yeah,
and I enjoy it. It's consistent. It's a consistent joy in my life, the actual writing process. You know?
Oh, I love that, man.
Yeah.
How about the other stuff that you just mentioned, the, you know, learning the engineering and all that kind of stuff? Like, do you said you obsess about things. Do you enjoy that process too? Have you grown to appreciate that?
I did actually more because this record, you know, this record went down smoother than anything else, and it was a large part. I mean, it was Jeremy Ferguson that I was working with, the producer and engineer. But it was nice to, instead of, you know, just having, you know, musician adjectives like being like, oh, I want this a little crunchier or a little more sparkly. You know, I could actually speak fucking frequencies. You know, I knew a little more. So, but yeah, for the most part, I still didn't try to be that guy. You know, as far as like, let's get in and change it. You know.
Because you were self-conscious about it, or just because you didn't want to?
Because he's so damn good.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's no point in working with him, not letting him do his thing. And he was really brave as far as his things goes. We would walk in off the floor, and it would sound mixed because he was making old school choices, like not like we'll fix in the mix later. He was recording it and, like, you know, hitting the preamp hard, or, you know, where the mic's placed is a very specific sound he's going for, and like he was just making choices on the fly that cannot be reversed, and it was fucking cool.
Nice.
You know, you walk in and be like, "Ooh, this sounds good already," you know. And so that it was really easy. It was great. He crushed it, man. I'd love to work with him again. And so with that sort of pressure off, it was just really fun to make this record, you know, and especially after a couple years of like
ready to get to it. Get this, baby. Yeah. Well, I definitely want to dive more into that. But I was just also reflecting today, again, like that 20-year thing kind of blew my mind. And I was thinking about when I first saw you. I think we talked about this last time for folks who are listening. We got a bunch of new listeners in the years that have intervened since we last sat out here behind Little Indies and spoke. But right after Mutt came out was the first time I think I saw you with John Snodgrass.
Oh, yeah.
And
love John.
Oh my God, he's just the best. He's been on the show twice. Great friend of the show.
I just saw him a few nights ago on his birthday. He played a show with me before he went down to Fest.
Oh, fun.
He was in rare form.
Oh my good. Where was that?
We were in Charlotte, I think.
That's dope, man. Oh, good. Rare form, man. That guy, he's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
I gotta get to Fest at some point. It's always the Florida Georgia weekend. It's always Florida Georgia, and Florida Georgia is a thing that I do, even though I've gotten to the point where I don't want to go anymore. It's just like this tradition that I continue to do to go see people, and it's always the same weekend as Fest. So I always miss Fest because I'm at the Florida Georgia game.
I've never done it. Yeah, I've never done Fest.
Yeah. So anyway, 2012, Mutt comes out, and that record was kind of like, that was a time when I'm like in my 30s and sort of trying to figure out how to be an adult. Like I'm starting to get there, you know. And it's a bad example because I think the one show I saw you play, that one, like we all got really drunk and John brought out candlesticks to play the drums at Underbelly.
I vaguely remember this. Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Your finger started bleeding while you were playing guitar, and it was a great fucking night. But
that used to happen a lot. Yeah,
we just
not
partied.
so much anymore.
But that time though was a very fruitful period for me, and that record has meant so much to me. And then it's interesting how I sort of lumped those records together, like Mutt, No Hit Wonder, and Adios are kind of this 5-year period.
Yeah, those are all the Bloodshot records. Yeah, so that's why they got to come out. You know, I had a label that wanted, and I had it in the contract. You know, because it took so long between the first and second record to get that going. So I was like, okay, you got to put out a record every year and a half if I give it to you. Yeah. And so we did records every like 2 years when I was on Bloodshot. But that record itself, Mutt, I cut that before I got signed to them. I had someone funded that, and I went out to San Francisco and did it. Like, I don't know, maybe 2010. That record sat for a bit. Chopped it around, and then Bloodshot bit, and we started working with them for those 3.
What do you remember if you were to think about like so for me as a fan, that scene at Underbelly is a scene. There's a scene in my head where I saw you at Rain Dogs in Jacksonville and 5 Points in
Christina's joint. Yeah.
Yep. And you shared a little bit of Another Nightmare in America, which had not been, because that record wasn't out yet, and you just talked to me. We were sitting at the bar and you were telling me about it and shared some of the lyrics and talked to me about the song, and I was just blown away by what you were saying, and then I was blown away by the finished product. What kind of, like, if you were to think about that period of your career, what are some sort of moments that stand out to you, or things you remember that or memories you hold on to from that sort of that mid period, so to speak?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, they're very much linked with my family. I got married, and I had a daughter before my marriage, and then I got married, and then we had a son, and so a lot of that time from Mutt to Adios was watching my kid grow, and at first I was gone a lot, especially around 2012 and stuff. Boy wasn't born yet at that time, but I did a lot of stuff in Europe, and I toured a lot here. I'm always touring a lot, but I don't know. I also remember losing my shit, like losing my fucking mind. Like, I've brought lives into this world. I need to be able to provide, and this, frankly, this is an unsustainable job. And so, and it gets less sustainable every day. But it's, so I remember onset of some, apparently I've had depression for a long time, but I got some new particular intense flavors of it. And it was a lot of highs and lows as far as that stuff goes, and a lot of stress. But the records, making them, they were all very different. I'm San Francisco with Mutt. I was out there just fucking sleeping in the studio. It was like Chuck Prophet's studio, but I was working with Tim Mooney from American Music Club before he passed, and musicians I didn't know. I sort of, they got me the couple guys from Granddaddy, which is great, and then we like auditioned drummers, and I found a killer guy. I was just fucking sleeping in the studio out there. Like I spent a month just in the studio. Not all the time working, but yeah, it was it was a process. And then No Hit Wonder, I was back in Nashville, did it in Nashville with an old buddy that produced it. Paul Ebersol is a Memphis cat, and so I was home, and I was there, and I got to have Sadler come in, and I got to have a bunch of Nashville folks come in, and it was easier. And maybe reflected on the record. I just said it's the only record that I wouldn't say compromise, because I don't ever compromise the songs, for anything. But it's the only record that I chose the batch of songs with the idea of, oh well, I'm on Bloodshot, I'll give them a Bloodshot record. I'm like, it's like all my records are usually like an hour long. I'm like, I'll give them a 30-minute fucking, sort of that between the arches, between country and punk and whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'll do a fucking roots record. I mean, but somebody that's listening to Americana music might listen to it and be like, this is like fucking Frank Zappa record. It's all over the fucking place. But that, to me, is my idea of fucking straightening it out.
Yeah.
I straightened that record out. I tried to put it through the arches. And then, nothing really, monumental came from it. So I'm like, fuck it. Go back to making the weird records that are all over the place that I like to make.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a fun one to make. And then Adios, we're down in Mississippi. Times were weird there. Yeah, right before I went in to record it, I got our landlord in Nashville tripled our rent, which I don't even think is legal. So all of a sudden, I'm down in Mississippi, simultaneously trying to find us a place to fucking live.
Damn.
And so I'm like, so that was fun. But that was a great record too. My buddy Robbie Crowell played all the drums, keys, and horns on that, and so it was a chance to do something I hadn't done, is work with one person that is he was fully engaged, and so like he knows when he's playing the drums where he's gonna leave the pockets for the other stuff, and so the arrangements kind of happened as natural as it can happen with essentially two people. We obviously fleshed it out with other folks, and Haggerty was on bass, and we got lots of guests. Like, I have guests on all my records because I like having my friends on records. I've got talented friends,
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was a whole different process down there in outside Oxford, Mississippi.
I absolutely love the segue you just teed up for me about the getting, going back to making weird records, because this, I was thinking about it. I've listened to When I Go, It Goes probably, 10 or 12 times in the last 3 days, and just really sitting with it and thinking about it and jotting down notes. And it feels like a milestone. It feels like, I think I've been a fan since just about since your first record. Not long after. But to me, this is the best thing you've made. And
Thanks. I think so too. Yeah. I sort of knew it when I was going down. I could tell. And yeah. It's the closest. By far the closest I've ever gotten to the sounds that were in my head, because I always hear these things, fleshed out. I don't hear them as a Townes Van Zandt, outside the trailer with the acoustic guitar kind of thing. I just, I like to make sure the songs hold up. That's a damn good test for a song.
Yeah.
It's like, can I play it on a fucking ukulele and have it still be a song or some shit? But I always hear them, more fleshed out and arranged. And it went down, obviously it's exceeded the sounds in my head in lots of ways. The musicians were fucking fantastic. Eric Slick on the kit was so good. It's I've always had that thing where I'm trying to do, because my live shows, out of necessity, fiscal necessity, or fucking solo,
Yeah.
And so the whatever little name I have as a solo performer, I've made it as that, as far as the live show. And they're very wild. I never plan anything. I change things all the time. I stop on a dime and I'm loud, quiet, do the whole fucking thing. But, some people are like, why don't you record that? I'm like, because you'd throw it out of your car. You'd be like, why is this hillbilly whispering and then screaming at me? Why is he rushing and dragging the tempo? Because when you take it when you take the temporal aspect of live music out of it, when you take the body out of it, you know, it very much depends on the room. And, you know, it happens once and it never happens again. You know, and that's what to me is the beauty of live music.
Yeah.
But if I recorded a solo record, I couldn't do what I do live because it just wouldn't translate. If you hear bootlegs of that shit, you're just like, hey, something's lost, you know. But so I've always tried to find the way to do it with sonically, you know, to do the dynamic thing or to do the sort of jarring changes or the interesting sonic mercurial thing.
Yeah.
And this record is the closest I've come to striking that balance.
Man, that's so great because it is like it's kind of all over the place. I would like in the best ways, you know, like that. There's so much going on.
Yeah, I've always tried the formula I have for my attempt to get it is to get overqualified, underprepared musicians. Don't give them the demos ahead of time.
Interesting.
Kind of thing, and you know, and so I mean, you give because my shit is a little snakier. It's deceptively simple. I got all kind of snaky shit going on in it, but I give it to them last minute, and then you listen to them. You know,
yeah.
I'm not a drummer. I have rhythmic ideas of how these things should go, but my rhythmic ideas are not going to be anywhere near as good as Eric Slick's.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so it's like you throw some ideas at them, and then you hear what they're feeling, and it's like, okay, let's go here as a compromise, or let's absolutely take this song where where you feel is much smarter. This is better, and, you know, and you just have to stay loose and not. I'm very, you know. There's not a syllable in any of my songs that's accidental. That's on purpose, and I try to balance that with a freedom with arrangements and sonic things. I try to capture that sort of lightning in a bottle of when people first get together and start doing these things, you know. Yeah. And to do it well on a record, almost in real time, you know, there's like no takes past 3 takes on any of my records. To do that is like you have to get fucking people you vibe with and just sick ass talent, you know.
Yeah.
And so I've been lucky enough to work with just some of the best musicians I know. So. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was the question I was going to ask you is how you decide, because you always do have the coolest guests and you got the best folks around, and I know that you're friends with a lot of these folks, but still you're friends with a lot of really talented musicians. So how you decide who's on the record? When you hear that fully formed song, do you hear Eric Slick on the drums, or like? You know what
specifically with the drums on this one, what I knew is I didn't want somebody that comes from a roots background. You know, I know a bunch of killer drummers. That I want to work with again someday. But Eric comes from, pop in the best sense of the word pop in the sense of the Kinks, but he can do any of that stuff, and so his instincts are different than say somebody that comes from a singer-songwriter world or and so
or a punk world.
Yeah, or a punk world,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you know. And I talked to Adam Willard's a buddy. Speaking of punk world, and like, you know, I would love to work with him, and I had a couple songs on the record where I had him in mind, but I didn't want to bring him in just for that. And I was talking to him about playing on the whole thing, and he's like, man, he's like, I picked a lane a long time ago. He was like trying to sell himself short. I was like, man, you could cover anything I wanted, but he was like, I do this thing, you know, very well, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's right. It's good to know that too.
That's some very good self-awareness there. That's a very.
But I mean, he picked that fucking lane and he blows down it like the Autobahn. He's so fucking good. I do want to work with him someday.
Yeah.
I'll do great. A full blast in a record sometime.
Hell yeah. No, it's interesting too. As I listen to the record, like there are a couple of songs that I thought, like for example, I was listening to what was I listening to? When I Leave Here.
Yeah, that was one of them I had in mind for Adam.
That's what I was just gonna say. Is like I could go for a whole that vibe Cory Branan record. You know, like I could really go. That shit would be that. It's something I would fire up.
That was fun.
But
you know, Eric was great on it. You know.
Yeah.
And especially because I was that kind of riff or whatever. It's really easy to slip into cock rock. You know. Mm-hmm. And so we were trying to keep it firmly rooted in like late '70s. sort of Nazareth vibes, and I was like, pop that cowbell up in there. You know? I was like, let's keep it in Nazareth territory. R.I.P. The singer's died. I saw that the other day.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, it seems like I saw something about that too, or maybe I saw you say something about it. I don't know. So many standouts on this record, dude. I mean, like, I'm just really crazy about it, and it's just, again, my favorite thing you've done, and I've been a fan for a long time. Undeniable that When in Rome and in Memphis has struck a chord with people. A lot of folks talking about it in my orbit on the interwebs. Can you talk a little bit about that particular song and like when it came together in your head? What was going on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that was just this little ditty I wrote. I was driving out through Jersey, actually, and I'd played in Asbury Park. And I don't think I played the Lanes. I can't remember where I was playing at the time, but I was just driving, and I don't know. You know, marriage it was falling apart, and we hadn't got divorced yet and stuff like that. But you know, I don't write really autobiographical shit, except for that Look I Lost. That one's pretty straight. But that was sort of the impetus, you know, of somebody being like, somebody sort of lying to themselves a little bit, you know, telling people that they're fine, that kind of thing. And it's like, I'm fine. I can be at home anywhere once it gets dark. You know, it doesn't matter to me where I am, and that sort of thing. But you know, the whole song is basically saying, it's all the same, you know, once it gets dark and that kind of thing. But he's just dragging around her memory everywhere. So it's like he's not home. He's not on his way home. He's not away from something. It's just this sort of, and a lot of the songs on the record, this sort of purgatory, this sort of in-between stasis and restlessness. And so that's just sort of how I ended up picking that batch out of, you know, a lot of songs. I wrote like 50 that year, and like I had a good year as far as that goes. And so those just sort of came together. But that particular one, you know, it's simple. It's like presented as a banger.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But there's, like any of the songs, you know, I want things for people to come back to. And so if you actually listen to it, you know, a few times, you'll start to get like, oh, okay, there's a story and a character in here that's implied from this, you know, relatively simple little rocker, you know.
But I think that speaks also to the whole record. I think what you just said is what my point is about listening to it so many times, not just because I was preparing for this interview, but also because and this is true of your writing, I think, in general, but especially on this record, that these songs keep giving. Like there's more and more, there's more to peel back.
Yeah, I've always liked records that do that. I lean towards songwriters that do that. You know, and I've talked about this before, but you know, like if you listen to like Blood on the Tracks with Dylan before, you know, in your early 20s, and then you listen to it, you know, post-divorce, post some hard life, you listen to it in your 30s, it's a different record. Guess what? It's a fucking different record at 47 too. It's like there's shit you don't unlock. You know, like you don't unlock these little Easter eggs and things that are in there because you just did not fucking have the experience. Yeah. And you know, the crazy thing about Dylan is he wrote some of this shit at 22. You know, it's insane. But that's also the thing. You know, you have access to these truths from doing the work. Like, because I've said it before, but I don't have any fucking wisdom. I have nothing. No, I don't know shit. You know, I mean, I know how to pick out one dive motel over another dive motel. I know what to look for. But I don't have any fucking wisdom or any special experience in life. You know, it's just like everybody. It's all fucking piecemeal, and you know, you call your choices what you fucking got, and you're like, I made those choices, and you look back and you're like, oh no, actually that was just a bunch of fucking circumstance and stumbling into this and that.
I want to challenge you. You say that, but I remember the first time I heard you saying, you know, ain't been transcendent, bunch of nothing. I've been down in it. Like I remember hearing those lyrics and being like, I don't know, man. You said a lot of shit on these other records that kind of blew my fucking mind.
Well, but that's the thing is I don't have these things to like that occur to me like, oh, this is, you know, wisdom or something. I need to write this down like this. What happens is I work and I just sort of follow these things and I play with these words and these structures and things, and I'll get through something and I'll be like, oh, that's true. oh, that's the truth, you know, and then, or this rings true. I'm like, this is true with this caveat. I'm like, I got to make sure I got these caveats in it. And then, so then I find this balance, and usually I find that sort of dialectic in a song, sort of arguing with itself to come across a truth, you know. And by truth, I don't mean a fucking answer. I mean just like a better question.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because that's all, you know. I have the better questions for myself. You know, and little fucking post-it notes to God. Yeah. And so the process, you come along these things, and you're like, oh, and it's almost like somebody else wrote it. You're like, oh, that's true. That's cool. You know.
Yeah.
You're like, I can do this. Oh, I can improve on this. You know. And so it just comes out through the process. I never sit down and be like, oh, I'm going to write the line that always struck me true, whatever. And it's just a simple little thing from that Lily song, whatever. It's the best trick is to see the magic once you've seen the wires, whatever, you know. And it's, you know, it could be a little pithy or whatever. But
that's a great line.
But there's something in that. And it's, and that just, I mean, those, you just have to get down in it and do the work for those. You just got to fucking dig for that shit.
Yeah.
And then you have to know what to do with it when you find it. You know, you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna put a cubic zirconia in every line. You know, you're like, I got a fucking rare gem here. I'm gonna find a good setting for it. I'm gonna be able to make this thing fucking really shine, or to hit a certain facet of it. You have to, you just gotta pick the right setting and the way the angle to tell the song, because it's all been said and done. You know, but if you find a fresh way in,
yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Like that very point I was thinking about recently, and I think the moment was I was listening to your record, and I was working out. I was down. We have this beautiful little lake down by our house, and I jogged down, and then we got like it's a city park, and it's got pull-up bars and shit, right? So I was down there doing my workout, listening to your record. And I was thinking about the idea of, because I just listened to Brian Koppelman talk about music on his podcast, and I was thinking about the idea of like whether or not it's all been done. And I just don't. I get that there's only a certain amount of notes, and there's only a certain amount of, you know, things are somewhat finite, I guess. But I just don't know that it has all been done. And I think this is. I circled this around to complement the way that you do what you do, in that you don't fit anybody else's kind of mold. You don't you could be pigeonholed into an Americana, whatever that means, genre, but like listening to this record especially, it feels like the most authentic version of you as I've experienced you that could be made.
Yeah, it's a little closer to the bone. But again, you know, it's all distanced in stories, you know. But there's, you know, when I say it's all been said and done, I just mean, you know, the experiences of life. You know,
Sure.
These things have all been said better by fucking Shakespeare and by fucking Joni Mitchell than I'm going to fucking get at.
Sure.
You know, but yes, but nobody's ever seen the world like I've seen it. Exactly.
Yep.
And they never had my experiences, and so it's almost like a retranslation of I mean, it's the old thing about originality, and you know how it's sort of been bastardized to mean different. You know, it's different than anything, but the origins of that mean originality means tapping an origin, like a fucking mouth of the river. You know, you're tapping into an origin. And so it's, you know, this is a universal thing you're tapping into. Doesn't mean different for different sake. And so that's what I just trust that it's going to get across from the microphone to the, you know, or just out of my face into someone else's face, and translate. And so I'm just retranslating through my filters, you know, through my guts, what I've processed. And I try to make sure I've chewed the shit up real well. I don't know. But yeah, everything is all, from what I've seen, all creativity in general. It's just combining the separate elements in a way to see the mundane in a fresh way.
Yeah.
To see something new, just to see it, you know, like how, like when I had kids, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, this leaf is fucking fascinating. You're right. No wonder you're spending fucking 20 minutes looking at this leaf. Look at this motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so how you're seeing through your kids' eyes again when that happens, that's at its best what a song can do for. You can hit a fresh facet of an old experience and be like, oh shit, this is tapping an origin, or this is truth here. And so the best songs do that for me, and I strive to have that happen in my songs. Yeah when I can.
Fuck yeah, man.
Sometimes I'm just fucking shooting shit.
Which is fine too, and can be compelling as well. I want to make sure I'm honoring your time. I can't see shit in the dark, and I don't know how we're doing on time.
I don't know. I don't think she started yet. She was starting about 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. You talked. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. Like with you mentioned the idea of like being in limbo, this sort of purgatory state. How do you navigate that? Like, what do you do? How comfortable are you in that state, and what do you do to navigate it?
I'm terrible at it. I
relate.
I mean, I just had to just fucking start taking care of myself. I had to find the right cocktail of meds.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, and I'm a little more forthcoming about that now. About the depression and stuff, and it features on the record.
Yeah.
With lots of caveats and jokes, Right. Because I have to fucking deal with this shit in real life, so it's like, Southern humor is comes in really handy. Gallows humor.
Yeah.
I don't do well with stasis, and my whole fucking career is nothing but stasis. It's like I came out of the gate, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. And I had the, good publicist, whatever, that took it under her wing, and she was like, yeah. So I fucking played Letterman and all this shit right out of the gate and got all these, but there was no tour, there was no label per se. It was a one-man label. There's no thing going on. And so it was just like a hurry up and wait thing. And then it took me forever, to be able to put out the next record, and it just takes forever, Then I was without a label. There's all this hurry up and wait, and meantime, for me, I see buddies and stuff like that careers just sort of blow by me, like they have and they do, and in general, I find that someone who is a very defined thing, when they do a thing, that's immediately graspable, then it's, their careers do better. People, want to know what they're getting with the ice cream. It needs to have a label on it for a reason, because they don't just want to buy mystery ice cream.
Yeah.
But I also I'm a little too fucking willful, because I get restless with I'm restless with that. I'm restless with any sort of form of music that's I just gotta fucking pull my feet out before the concrete hardens. I just feel like it's hardening all the time, and as you get older, the concrete starts to set, man.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to ever set. I want to be, if I fucking get to kick it, 30 more years, which is very questionable. I want to be interested in something new, something new to me, and just genuinely interested and passionate about something new that fucking last year before I kick it. It's everything else feels a little bit like, it feels a little bit like death. It feels like giving up.
Yeah.
And so my music is the only thing that I've ever sort of kept pure, and to me, and authentic to me, in that I don't actually, feel like I come from Mississippi. I was raised a certain way, so I have these experiences or whatever, but I don't consider that. I don't feel like a lot of people will take where they're from and things like that, and they'll shore themselves up and their identity up from it. And I don't have any interest in that. I could be from anywhere. I have interest in other people and their experiences and things external to myself that I like to be able to change and shift and just turn on a dime and it's. I've seen where it's very detrimental to my career, but I don't think it's detrimental to my writing or to my anything I'm creating. So I'm just gonna keep doing it like I'm doing it.
Yeah. Oh man, you are speaking my language. Like that, I never heard it put that way. The concrete setting. Because I mean, I'll be 42 in December. And I'm wrestling with all those questions about like now my career, my day job career is much more stable. Like I'm in education. I say it's much more stable. In Florida, it's not all that stable
right.
at the moment.
Yeah, right.
But
hey, two plus two ain't gonna be two anymore. We can't do that because I heard a liberal say that was 4.
Yeah, it's gonna make the white kids feel guilty if
Yeah. Oh Lord.
So yeah, it's crazy. But if I need a job and a paycheck, it's steady.
Yeah.
It ain't a lot, but it's like I know what it is, and I know that I can do it, and I can do it at a high level.
Oh, I would have a much happier life if I had some sort of. Yeah.
It makes a difference, but at the same time, I can relate to what you're saying about even though our careers are very different. I can relate to the idea of like, I feel like I got a lot of life left. I've kept myself in really good shape. Most of the men in my family died really young, but my father's still hanging on, and he's almost 80. And I feel like and he's lived like hell.
My old man kicked it at 56, so I'm just like, I'm on. I feel like I'm like on borrowed time already.
Well, I mean, I don't think my dad had any expectation to make it past 56. His dad died in his 40s, and his dad died in his 40s, and like they all had heart attacks, like, and my father did too. It's just modern medicine kept him going, But I'm looking at him at that age and thinking a lot about my mortality, which is a constant obsession of mine, and just thinking about like that concrete, kind of trying to get my feet out of those concrete and figuring out what to do. So man, I can completely relate to that, and I just don't know. Here's the challenge that I'm facing, and maybe you can relate to this, maybe not, but I don't see anybody. It's just no disrespect to anybody in my life that's older than me, but I don't see like folks around my dad's age that have done it well in my mind in terms of like aging and continuing to grow. The best example I can think of, and this person's not in my life, but he was on my podcast, is John Doe said to me on my podcast about a couple months ago. He said, I see people around me and their worlds are contracting. Like around his age, like their worlds contract. And he said, one of the things that I refuse to do, and he's just full of life. Yeah. He's like, I refuse to let my world contract.
Yeah, that's it. That's the big boa. Yeah. And it's whatever you can do to fight it, man. Even in little ways. And like, don't get me wrong. Like I would like certain parts of my world to get smaller. I would like to not be away from my kid fucking half of the year. But yeah, I just get restless, man. Yeah, and so it's like
wanderlustfully restless.
No,
intellectually restless.
Intellectually restless, absolutely, and also just with this fucking country, the fucking, I get restless with just fucking chit chat, even though I extend politeness, it's so in me as a Southerner. I extend politeness to fucking asshats that should, that I shouldn't. You get like 3 strikes kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'd probably be a little happier if I didn't suffer fools. Yeah. But I don't suffer from long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get, I don't know, man. But this sort of, what music is for me, or then this thing, it's separate. Again, it's not how I don't identify it as like a large part of myself. It's something that I love, that I follow. It's part of my life that's kind of, I've kept it pure, and it's I have to allow myself room to fucking move in it. You know.
Yeah.
I have to. You know, just not just sonically, but if maybe I will write fucking more confessional albums sometime, or you know, or maybe I'll just go fully, you know, obviously stories. So I don't know. Maybe I'm fucking put out a fucking instrumental record of electronic music. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so I figured, as long as I don't waste people's time with the songs themselves, you know, like if you trust me with your 3.5 minutes, I'll take you somewhere different than where we started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll go somewhere different. You know, it's like there's a reason for this song to exist. I'm not gonna fucking waste your time with it otherwise. You know.
I love that.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, and because people waste my time all the time. You know.
Yeah.
I turn it on the radio or something, this, that, and I'm like, I don't get those 3 minutes back.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, it's the least you can do for people. And so I think if I have any sort of longevity to it, it's because people can use these songs. They can hopefully you know, store them away. Like, well, it's Tom Waits said it sometime. He's like, you don't know how people are going to use these songs, so you better pack them with stuff like a Swiss Army knife. He's like, you don't know what they're trying to open with that fucking corkscrew. He's like, you know. But yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, you kind of want to make the songs tactile and fucking useful.
Oh, this is a Swiss Army knife of a record, dude. That's for sure. That's great. That's so great. Yeah.
No, yeah, Tom Waits is he? He's ultimately quotable. He's really good at.
Yeah. All right, let me check one more time on our time. All right, let me let you go here soon. I wish I could fucking see anything. There we go. Perfect. Okay, great. We're just at time. We always end on... This has been awesome, Cory. Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank you for being so
Thanks,
open, dude. It's always a pleasure. We always end on what you're getting down on, the art that has you inspired right now. Could be a 3.5-minute song that didn't bore you or waste your time, or it could be a painting you've seen or something you're reading.
Yeah, I just finished the new Cormac McCarthy fucking like 30 minutes ago. Yeah, that was good. It's not a novel per se. It was very it's really interesting. It's fucking loose, man. It's like it's some gonzo shit back and forth between the narrators.
That's gonna be next. All right.
But it was there's always just masterful writing. Let's see. Musically, I've been listening to a lot of. I've been taking it easy lyrically as far as stuff. I've been listening to a lot of piano jazz that I like. You know, from Oscar Peterson, Bill Evans, always Art Tatum. But you know, there's still like Ben from Lucero is putting out a synth record that he did with his daughter. It's coming out really soon, and it's really good. I got to be in there. I went in to sing on the last Lucero, and he was in there working on that at the same time with her, and it's really fun.
That's cool.
So yeah, I'll keep an ear out for that one.
Yeah,
it's really good. I've been popping that one on a couple times on this drive. But yeah, mostly I'm just fucking. A lot of times I'm not looking to be inspired. I'm looking to fucking kill a 7-hour drive with a fucking Nordic noir. I did this podcast with Red Miller the other day. That off wheels. My brain's not working.
Wheels off.
Wheels off. Thank you.
Right.
And he was really kind or whatever. And then we got to talking. So we've been texting back and forth about, because he likes the Nordic noirs and some of the detective stuff. So we've been. He's like, have you read the Slough House ones? I'm like, oh yeah, I just devoured those. So yeah, a lot of times I want just a certain level of engagement with the audiobooks. I don't need to be, you know, have any Proust on the road. You know?
Yeah. No, I can relate. I'm not on the road, but I can relate. It's like I go through these periods where I just need to devour everything that's gonna challenge me as deeply as I can possibly be challenged, and then sometimes it's just like, man, give me fucking Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. That's when I put on all my favorite like gore movies that I grew up with. Just the goriest fucking, you know. At the back of the record or whatever with all the neon green is a nod to Reanimator. I don't know if you remember Reanimator. Watch that one.
All right.
It's super fucked up. Well, as a kid growing up, like my parents, when you know it's pretty religious and stuff. They made a mistake and said okay to MTV when it came on, and that just, you know, obviously changed my life. But my also religious uncle and aunt, they owned a movie store a rental place. And so when I stayed with them, they were like, yeah, get whatever you want. I'm like, yeah, I spit on your grave. I want The Shining. I want Mother's Day. I want, fucking Cannibal Apocalypse, whatever the hell. I would just be grabbing these. And so I was so obsessed with all that. I had Fangoria descriptions. So, I've got a whole, that's my sort of go-to. When I want something really dumb and fun, I'll just watch all the gore movies.
That's great, dude. Man, thank you so much. This is a pleasure as always, dude. When I Go, I Ghost is my favorite thing you've done, and I've been a fan of yours for damn near 20 years now, and it's just so exciting to get to talk to you, and I'm just super grateful.
Thanks, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Cheers, brother.
When I go, I ghost. 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 When I go, I ghost.
Cory Branan, y'all. Thank you so much, Cory. Thank all of you for listening. CoryBranan.com for all things Cory, including physical copies of his incredible record, When I Go, I Ghost. The physical copies are beautiful, y'all. The artwork is wonderful. He also has some great bundles of merch for sale over there, so go to CoryBranan.com to scoop up a physical copy. The song you are hearing in this episode is When in Rome, When in Memphis, which is perhaps my favorite tune on When I Go, I Ghost, but that changes every time I listen to the album, and I just keep listening to the album. It really is that good. You heard us talk about that track during this conversation. Go get a copy, y'all. CoryBranan.com. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade, and that'll include written pieces, photography from myself if my wonderful collaborator and friend Jen Ross is not available. When she is, she's the pro, and so she's the one doing all the work. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that in a second. We have our online store there, and we're working on new merch right now. We don't have anything for you, but stay tuned because we've got some new stuff going up very soon. Give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter. We've really been trying to lean into Instagram and Twitter and sharing the more personal moments from the Marinade and even from my life. And so hop over there, follow along with what's happening. We'd really appreciate it. We'd also really appreciate if you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. If you tell a friend about the show, those are all free ways that you can help the Marinade and help support this thing that we're doing. It feels like we're continuing to reach more folks and continuing to share this beautiful art that we love and respect. And so I'm super grateful for everybody who does all of those things to interact with the show. We even have a TikTok, y'all. I don't mess with it too much, but we do have a TikTok, and if you send us a message there or if you tag us there, we will see it and we will share it. Y'all, we have conversations with Hayes Carl coming up, Colin Halliburton, Langhorne Slim. Those are all in the can and ready to come your way. Thank you so much for supporting this Marinade thing. I mentioned Jen Ross earlier. We had the most incredible weekend. I'm recording this on a Sunday, and we just got back last night from Orange Blossom Review, which is a festival in Lake Wales, Florida, the first week of December. I want to thank everybody involved with the festival for having us out for the second time. This year, we got to record with Langhorne Slim. We got to meet Allison Russell in person. I finally got to meet Allison in person. You may remember, if you've been following the show for a while, that I got to interview Allison serendipitously at the time that she happened to be learning of her 3 Grammy nominations last year. And so I hadn't actually seen her play, and I had not met her in person, but I got a chance to see her and give her a hug, and it was so much fun. And then I got to see her play. And y'all, if Allison Russell gets anywhere near you, and you can figure out how to pay for it if you're struggling, I get it. If not, no excuses. Go see her play, y'all. I mean, unbelievable, the performance. I got to meet Joy Clark, who's a wonderful songwriter in her own right and who plays in her band, and it's just a sweet, sweet spirit. I have more to say about this experience, but I couldn't let this episode go by without sharing that incredible moment with y'all. I share these kind of more personal moments about the Marinade, and the behind the scene things over on Patreon. If you can swing it, we'd really appreciate having you over there. Patreon is a place where you can support creative endeavors that you appreciate. For as little as $2 a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content, things like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life. I provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. I ask if anybody has questions for the guests. So, for example, Jordan, one of our wonderful Patreon patrons, had a great question for Langhorne Slim, and that really guided the conversation. So it truly is a community where we're kind of making this thing together. And I'm really grateful for everybody who's able to support us over there. If not, I totally get it. All the free ways to support the show are greatly appreciated. We also have another way to support us financially. If you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription on Patreon, totally get that. Maybe you just like this episode and you want to tip us. We're just at the Marinade at Venmo or PayPal, and all the money goes right back into the show. Jen and I were just talking about covering some festivals. We got invited to cover some festivals up the East Coast this past weekend. And so anything that goes in the Patreon, we're just going to put right back into plane tickets and lodging and those kinds of things, so that we can make sure that we make this show as interesting and as exciting as we want it to be. And hopefully y'all are having as much fun as we are with this thing. Here we are, 5.5 years in, y'all, of episodes, which means almost 7 years worth of this thing going from being an idea to being a real thing. Episode 119, Cory Branan for the second time. Y'all, thank you. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.